Ooh boy, Bungie seems to be in the quote unquote thick of it, KSITM, right now with some allegations, and as far as I'm aware, some proven facts, if you will, of them taking artwork and without crediting, without any sort of citation, just using it within Marathon. We do have this user who says the Marathon Alpha released recently, and its environments are covered with assets lifted from post notes I made in 2017 from some videos I've seen. Once again, take everything on the internet with a grain of salt. Do your own research, all that fun stuff. And individuals I've talked with, it seems for all intents and purposes this is pretty cut and dry. If anything, look at the Marathon Dev Team at Marathon Dev Team over on Twitter X, to which we immediately began investigating concerns regarding unauthorized use of artist decals in Marathon, and confirmed that a former Bungie artist included these textures in a sheet that was ultimately used in game. So I think there's a couple things here that really kind of reach out to me and really kind of make me look at this situation with disdain. So obviously, Bungie is no stranger to allegedly using artworks in a more than, how do I word it? They've used things that are very close to existing artwork, whether that be a cutscene in game, which was a monochrome rendition of an artwork piece that already existed without any credit, whether that was an Ace of Spades controversy in terms of an Ace of Spades design, now in regards to Marathon, just seemingly taking posters from artists without credit. The thing that this does remind me of, unironically, is Games Workshop's community art policy, where it is very loose, it is very open-ended, ambiguous, and as far as I'm aware, Games Workshop really does not cite any sort of artist, creator, etc. As far as I'm aware, they actually do own anything that the community does create because IP law in their own community thing. However, I wanted to just really let this kind of sink in for a second, because this is wild. This is absolutely egregious. I mean, I want to say I cannot believe that something like this would happen, but I think absolutely something like this would happen. I think that for something to get to this stage of development, especially hiding behind the PR answer of, was it a prior employee who had these texture sheets that were ultimately used in game, to prevent simulations in the future. We're conducting a thorough review of our in-game assets, value the creativity and dedication of artists. You cannot tell me. So one, clearly, I would say you do not respect artists. You do not respect their creativity. You respect their dedication, their ingenuity, the time and work they put into play, because clearly this made it to, for all intents and purposes, a finished product. For anything to get to a playable, quote-unquote, beta state, right? I guess this is alpha, technically, but this is far enough along that, like, cognizant decisions were made here. Don't PR me. Don't PR us. Don't PR your way out of this. Lawyers had to go over this. Multiple teams had to go over this for they to get to the stage of production. You knew. Everyone knew, especially in management, knew what was happening here. I refuse any sort of answer that Bungie management did not know what was happening here. I refute that on just, there's no way. I refuse to believe that that's a thing. I would also argue, who owns Bungie? It's almost like Sony owns Bungie. Now, am I, from a legal standpoint, claiming that Sony, allegedly engaged in art theft, gave the green light to all of this? No. Legally, I can't say that, nor really am I going to say that. What I can say, from my personal subjective view, looking at Sony, looking at Bungie, I will treat Sony and Bungie management as if they knew this happened. Now, to clarify, from a legal standpoint, that is not me accusing them of, you knew this was happening, you gave the green light to this. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, when I do look at Sony and when I look at Bungie, I will treat them as if they knew. That way, one, I'm not making accusations, right? Especially in regards to Sony, where this may be foundless. But from my own standpoint, I can also treat this as a company who, look, people said Sony don't know what they bought. There's no way they knew Bungie's financial situations. That's simply not true. A corporation as large as Sony is going to make sure to do full audits, is going to make sure to have lawyers, high-end management specialists look into acquisitions, purchases, mergers, etc., right? I refuse to believe that this was done in a vacuum. And as I said, not that I'm going to directly accuse Sony. I think that would be greatly inappropriate, but I will be treating Sony and Bungie as if they knew this happened all along. So at the end of the day, especially in regards to, things that have been happening on the internet, especially in the VTuber sphere, with certain artists, certain individuals, certain controversies, if you will, that have been happening, I think that it's important to make sure that we understand to respect our artists. We make sure to communicate with our artists. We make sure to follow necessary procedures and protocol. We make sure we're all above board at the end of the day. I've told people, yeah, this is my artist. I have links to who my artist is in my Discord. I have the art section. I mean, even my art sheet has my artist on there, right? I don't quite I understand the principle of trying to find the cheap way out to maximize profit, line go up. I understand why patterns like this emerge. I understand why things like this happen. But in good faith, I can't agree to that. And so, while I think that, in my own personal subjective opinion, the current lawsuit in regards to some dude's blog posts or whatever and copyright, I think that is incredibly frivolous in my own personal subjective opinion. I think that something like this, definitely having a little more weight, is honestly just, it's unacceptable. I think that as somebody who would still play Destiny, I would still play to raid. I feel that going into current content drops, we're effectively, I have it on, understanding that we're effectively going to 2 expansions per year. We're going effectively, what people have said is going back to Warmind, Curse of Osiris and Warmind era. And for all intents and purposes, obtaining less content than we did for Witch Queen and Final Shape. I'm effectively priced out of the game, but I will hop onto raid if there are people who want to get together and run Rid Nightmares, Vault of Glass, who want to get together and, try Salvation's Edge, right? But for the most part, I think at this point, I cannot in good faith support Bungie, especially because going from seasons into episodes was a content loss, in my opinion, subjective opinion. And it was whatever. I mean, I can still play the game. I can still find enjoyment in it. I can still find things to do and entertain myself. But when it comes down to, would I rather play a game like Warframe, I feel it treats my time and way better? Would I rather play something like old retro Pokemon games like Crystal, Fire Red, which are complete on cart for all intents and purposes? And, I don't necessarily have to worry about an online connection. I don't have to worry about being mid-raid or mid-dungeon run and, servers going down for maintenance. I don't have to worry about memory leaks that have been really prominent in the game since at least Into the Light when Onslaught was announced. I don't know how that memory leak is still in the game. I feel personally that, in my subjective personal opinion, Bungie does not respect my time. And I feel that Bungie itself does not appear to respect artists, and it feels like this is, to me, subjectively, once again, this reeks of an MVP, minimum viable product, to which we can look to Todd Howard, God Howard, if you will, his words, of it's not where you, not necessarily where you begin, but it's where you end. Look to games like Halo Infinite, where the cash shop is pretty fully feature complete on launch. And, then eventually the game just ends up going nowhere because, Mass Effect Andromeda set legal precedent that there's no reason to continue because there's no legal ramifications for it. So I'm going to be following Bungie and lawsuits that are currently targeted at Bungie. And as I said, to me, regardless of this PR stance, to me, this just reeks of PR. This tells me that nothing will happen. Nothing has happened. And ultimately, I feel that, in my personal subjective opinion, Bungie is complicit in this. And obviously, as I said, not accusing Sony, not alleging that Sony knew, but I will be personally, in my own personal subjective opinion, be treating Sony as if they knew because they knew what they bought for all intents and purposes. Whether they were complicit or not, whether they knew or not, I will personally, in my own purchases, be treating Sony as if they knew and were complicit in the stealing of artwork. But I digress. At the end of the day, come to your own conclusion. come to your own educated answer. It's okay in a situation like this to feel upset. Make sure that we're doing it in the proper way, right? We're not sending, spicy threats or spicy cylindrical objects to people. There are adult ways to handle things like this. And I think that this is definitely something to at least have an opinion on in the world of copyright. In the world of video games, in regards to how unregulated the video games market is, in regard to what parent companies do and don't know. I think there's a lot that you can pull from this, and I would absolutely recommend doing your research. To me, this does damage Bungie's credibility to me, and damages Sony's credibility to me by extension, because of the fact that this happened in the first place. Thank you all for watching. Let me know what your comments, thoughts, opinions are. Please keep it civil in the comment section down below. I'll see you in the next one.